All right, howdy class, and welcome to today's lecture. We're going to be discussing youth program best practices. This relates into safety and wellness, risk management procedures that will happen at your camp. So let's get started. As a best practice, you have a moral and legal obligation to all of the youth within your programs. In putting these best practices is an integral part of a program design and implementation. So how you go about doing things, the culture you create, starts by using best practices. Having your standing operating procedures is a key way to protect your participant and your organization from such tragic situations that could be harmful to individuals and even the reputation of your organization. If you have policies and procedures in place, they must be followed at all levels. And also recognize that all youth programs carry some level of risk. Your goal is to manage it and mitigate it through policies and practices, and you also involve making intentional decisions regarding safeguards. So, looking at risk management in this situation at your camp involves many categories or operations that might include organizational culture of child protection, how you go about your paid staff and volunteer selection, the orientation training that you do with those paid staff and volunteers, your program management, your crisis management, and how you go about reporting situations. And realize that every youth program should have a detailed guideline for every one of these operations. This is something that I really want you to focus in on, and I hope that we can go over in some of your practicums and your EOMs for this one. So pay attention, hopefully, to this slide. So let's look at some key definitions in risk management best practices. We have industry standards, due diligence, best practices, and standard operating procedures. We kind of throw these words around sometimes, but it's key to understand what their true definitions are. I'll let you read through them here. And you can see those. You can go back if you need to, since this is a video file. But using those four terms, how would you complete the following statement by using these key terms? Risk management is the process of practicing blank and following predetermined blank, which identify blank and are based on blank in an effort to minimize risk to the participants and the organization. Go ahead and pause the video so you can take a moment to see what those might be. Take an opportunity to try different words now that you have the definitions from the previous slide. And here's the answer to that. Risk management is a process of practicing due diligence and following predetermined standard operating procedures which identify best practices and are based on industry standards in an effort to minimize risk to the participants and the organization. So like I said, youth protection is risk management. So what is risk? Risk is the possibility of a future event that threatens the organization's ability to accomplish its mission. Areas of risk can be people, this is your staff or your participants, your resources such as your facility, your financial resources that you have. So think about being in litigation and being sued in the court of law. You may lose some of your financial resources. And then you also have risk related to your reputation and goodwill. I want you to think of an example of events that could happen to threaten the reputation and the future of your organization, and what is unique about your camp that may fit into each of these. So risk management steps, first one's to identify the risk and minimize potentials for negative outcomes. This will be part of your later assignments. Also, that risk management is an integral part of the organizational process and decision making. So everything's very proactive here. You're identifying and integrating ahead of time. You're having that plan before things happen. So within a risk management plan, you also have a risk assessment and the treatments for the procedures that would occur if something happened. You need to identify what is standard operating procedures within your area, within your industry, to reduce those risks. And you should also review these and modify these periodically. As you must assess the risk, try to predict the implications of moving forward, and then what you can do to mitigate those risks, to lessen those negative outcomes. While they are unavoidable, you may be able to minimize them. So a good risk management plan also enhances the participant's experience because the participant experience decreases when they're directly exposed to risk. So as safety should be paramount goal of all of your activities. A good risk management plan is stewardship. So each incident consumes unnecessary resources like we talked about, financial, physical, or human. So by lessening your risks, you are becoming a better steward for your camp or program. A good risk management plan programs are often very cost effective than what the alternative could be. They can forestall problems and you can be better prepared because you've thought through these scenarios. So you make a decision in your organization and your programs whether they're safe or not. And here's your opportunity to develop a culture of risk management to protect not only your participants, but to protect your program as well. Some of those first steps, we talk about evaluating the risk. How probable is it, or how frequent could a risk occur? What are the consequences and severities of that risk coming true? And then you can also look at composite risk index. And so this is kind of a formula you can look to determine how big of a risk you have. So again, you look at how often it occurs, whether it's very rarely to very frequently. What is the severity to the impact of your organization? And then you multiply those together to equal some kind of composite risk. So if you're in a situation when you're considering activities, say like horseback riding at a camp, how often do you do it? Do you do it every day? Because there is a risk of children falling and getting hurt. What is the severity of those actions? Because falling from 6 feet up could be deadly in some ways. If you do it every day as part of your activities, then your risk factors go up because you have more opportunities. But if you only do it once per camp, then your risk is greatly reduced. So those are things that you need to consider when promoting activities as part of your program. And so here are some of the strategies that you can put into risk management. You can avoid, so not allowing certain activities to take place. You can reduce severity, so again, changing how often you provide something or providing alternative steps that may allow you to do the activity but in a different way that is more safe. You can transfer risk. This is a great opportunity, like third-party things. So if you have a youth group and you take them whitewater rafting, by using a vendor and you're paying them a fee, you're transferring that risk from you as a church organization to that whitewater rafting company for them to protect you. They're like an independent contractor. They give you liability waivers. And then finally, you can assume the risk, meaning that you're willing to take the risk as part of your program. So today's kind of a quick lecture. We'll talk about the practicum. What I want you to do is I want you to create some scenarios that we've kind of gone through here in this, and I want you to list and determine 10 scenarios most likely to occur in your program. I just want you to list them and define them. What are they? What kind of activity are they? Who are they involving? And potentially what are some of the risks? Okay, that's it. Then I want you to take that same list into your end of module 11, and using the National 4-H document as a guide from previous modules, I want you to take those same 10 scenarios that you just did in Practicum 11 and determine the strategies, maybe some rules, policies, and procedures to address and be proactive regarding the safety, health, and wellness. So, what are some of those ideas that you can do to lower your risk management? I want you to include any categories that could apply to your program, but make sure the wording is changed to reflect your context. So you'll see some in that National 4-H guide, but I want you to make it in line with what you do at your camp. These should be proactive measures in your programming. So within that document, make sure they're proactive. They happen before an incident takes place. And finally, I want you to add areas that may not be represented in that guide, but should be for your camp. So refer to the scenarios in a Word document on eCampus for other things to consider. And then, as always, this will be due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. All right, thank you. See you in the next one.